Liberation, Emma's journey to independence. Emma, 22, has just graduated from business administration and returned to live at her parents' house after years of trying to achieve excellent results. Although she had no intention of staying long, Emma temporarily returned to save money on rent while looking for a job. Luckily, within a week, she landed a position at Babysit marketing, with a decent salary and promises of performance bonuses. Emma plans to stay at her parents' house for 3 months, saving enough to move out and be independent. However, when she shared this plan with her family at dinner, Emma immediately received a serious look from her parents. Her mother, in a gentle but determined voice, mentioned the family's financial difficulties. Her mother could only work part-time due to health problems, and her father faced the risk of being fired at the factory. "You don't have to pay rent here, and it would make sense if you stayed to help your family," her mother added. Although she feels that her plans are broken, Emma has to accept to extend her time at home, feeling somewhat trapped by family responsibilities. Life then slowly took off. Emma went to work, paid most of the bills, and her mother always prepared dinner on the table. However, this calm did not last long. Over the weekend, Olivia's sister appeared with her husband Mark and their 2 children, Sophie and Lucas. Emma's parents immediately changed their attitude, becoming enthusiastic and warm with Olivia. They asked every little detail of Olivia's life, from how she took care of the garden to the new words Lucas had just learned. On the contrary, Emma feels like she is forgotten in her own family. She recalled the times when her excellent achievements only received attention through loudspeakers from her parents, while Olivia was always the center of attention. This bias makes Emma feel hurt, but she doesn't show it, but instead continues to act as a silent support in the family. These feelings gradually accumulate, preparing to lead to bigger conflicts later. Emma has been accustomed to not being the center in the eyes of her parents since she was a child. While Olivia's older sister has always been considered the star of the family, Emma, despite her outstanding achievements, still only receives superficial compliments and lacks real interest. The memory of the times when her mother rushed to put aside her attempts to focus on Olivia is still haunting. This hasn't changed even as they've grown up, and it's become clearer than ever when Olivia, her husband, Mark, and 2 young children move in with their families. Mark lost his job suddenly, and Olivia's family could no longer afford the rent. When Olivia called to inform, Emma's mother immediately agreed, without thinking. Families always have to help each other. Although Emma felt that the burden would fall on her shoulders, she had no right to refuse. Olivia and her family brought 3 carts of furniture, making the already small house more cramped and chaotic than ever. Emma's large bedroom is immediately converted into a playroom for Sophie and Lucas, while Emma has to move into the smallest storage room in the house. Although Olivia and Mark promised to find a way to contribute, they quickly took it for granted. Emma has to pay most of her utility bills and grocery shopping, while Olivia often sits and watches TV or talks to friends, while Mark finds work, mostly on the phone. Soon, Emma was turned into an unpaid babysitter. Every time she came home after work, Olivia and Mark stood with their car keys, announcing their plans. "Emma, take care of the kids, we'll be right away," they said, but they didn't come back until late every time. Emma's peaceful weekends are gone, replaced by long days of dealing with the mess of the 2 kids and trying to keep them from ruining everything in the house. Emma feels like an invisible person in her own family. Her parents, rather than supportive, argue that Emma is having the opportunity to practice parenting. Emma's fatigue, dissatisfaction, and feelings of being taken advantage of grow, prepare for an inevitable confrontation. Emma quickly gets caught in the wheel of responsibility when Olivia and her family move in. The small house is getting cramped and chaotic. Emma's large bedroom became a playroom for the 2 children, and she had to move into a cramped storage room, just enough room for a single bed and a small wardrobe. Olivia and Mark, though they promised to find a way to contribute, did almost nothing. Olivia spends most of her time watching TV, surfing her phone, or complaining about her struggles, while Mark always makes excuses for the tough job market. All the costs of electricity, water, and food fell on Emma's shoulders. The bill doubled, eating away at most of her salary. When Emma brought this issue up for discussion, Olivia and her parents quickly blamed her for being selfish and lacking interest in her family. However, what makes Emma feel most tired is not only the financial burden, but also the forced work of being an unpaid babysitter. Every evening after work, Emma didn't get a break. Olivia and Mark always planned to go out and take it for granted that Emma is looking after the two children. On weekends, instead of taking time for herself, Emma had to act as a referee between Sophie and Lucas, cleaning up the mess and enduring the constant sound of children's music coming from the living room. When Emma tries to explain that she needs time for herself, Olivia sees it as a lack of responsibility to her family. Watching the kids is also a good way for me to learn how to be a mother later, her mother said, leaving Emma feeling completely ignored. The climax occurs when Emma decides to join a weekend ski trip with friends. Olivia asked Emma to cancel her plans to babysit because she and Mark wanted to go to a relative's birthday party. This time, Emma refused. She resolutely defended her personal time, despite criticism from her sister and parents. "They're my children, not my responsibility," Emma replied, affirming clear boundaries for the first time. Emma's refusal caused anger from the whole family. But for her, it is the first step to get out of the vicious circle of responsibility and affirm her self-worth. This confrontation was the premise for Emma's decision to make a big change. After Emma flatly refused to cancel her personal plans to babysit Olivia and Mark, family tensions reached a peak. Olivia, accustomed to people being submissive, could not accept Emma's resistance. She angrily claims that Emma is selfish and doesn't care about her family. Emma's mother, as usual, sided with Olivia, saying that the family needs to help each other, and scolded Emma for her lack of responsibility. Her father nodded quietly, adding, "I really need to review my attitude." Despite the fierce criticism, Emma did not give in for the first time. She responded calmly but firmly that she no longer wanted to be taken advantage of. "I have sacrificed too much time, money, and mental health for my family. Now it's time for you to set boundaries," she said. These words made the whole family fall into a state of shock. Olivia exploded in anger, and her mother was disappointed, even threatening. "If you walk out of this house, don't expect to come back." Instead of feeling scared or remorseful, this threat became a motivation for Emma. It was an opportunity for her to truly change her life. That night, Emma packed her things, packed her essentials into the car, and called her best friend Rachel, asking if she could stay for a few days. Rachel immediately agreed, and Emma left in the face of the family's incredulous gaze. Before walking to the door, Emma said one last word, full of certainty. "From now on, I will not pay any more bills. The family needs to take care of itself." These words stunned her mother, but Emma did not turn her head. When she arrived at Rachel's house, Emma felt as if she had relieved herself of a great burden. She spent the weekend skiing as planned, enjoying her freedom for the first time in years. The trip is not only a vacation, but also the beginning of a new chapter in her life. While Emma begins her search for a new apartment, her family is left in chaos. Emma's departure forces Olivia, Mark, and her parents to face the fact that they can't rely on her forever. But for Emma, this is the first step to affirming her self-worth and building an independent life. Leaving the family home, Emma enters a new phase of her life. Although the act of leaving surprised and angered her family, for Emma, it was the best decision after years of being oppressed by the burden of her family. In her early days at Rachel's house, Emma felt like she was freed from unfair bondage. No more children's cries, no more bills weighing on her shoulders. She realized that this was her chance to redo her life. A ski weekend with friends is not only a vacation, but also a time for Emma to rediscover herself. She enjoys freedom, feeling prioritized for herself, for the first time after years of sacrifice for others. Returning from the trip, Emma immediately started looking for a small apartment that fits her budget. Thanks to a stable salary and no longer having to pay for her family, she quickly found a bright one-bedroom apartment just a 15-minute drive from her workplace. Moving into her new apartment, Emma experiences the freedom she once dreamed of. Every morning, she wakes up in peace, makes her own coffee, and enjoys it while it's hot, something that was nearly impossible before. In the evenings, she reads, watches movies, and enjoys her private space without being bothered by noise or babysitting responsibilities. However, this peace did not last completely when her family began to communicate. Messages from her mother, Olivia, and dad quickly appeared on Emma's phone. They are a mixture of blame, and pleading. Olivia accused Emma of being selfish. Her mother sent long messages full of guilt, and her father insisted that the family was struggling and needed her support. At first, Emma read it all but didn't answer. Gradually, she realized that letting those words affect her mind would pull her back into the old spiral. She decides to block all communications from her family, including her mother, father, Olivia, and Mark, to protect her newfound peace. During this time, Emma also spent time thinking about family relationships. She understands that in order to have a healthy relationship, both parties must have respect and clear boundaries. She didn't hate her family, but she knew that if she continued to accept the role of person in charge, she would never be happy. Emma's departure plunges her family into chaos. Olivia and Mark have to deal with the responsibility of taking care of their children on their own, while her mother has to face the fact that Emma is no longer the one who can carry everything. For Emma, the departure is not a complete breakup, but an opportunity to rebuild a relationship based on fairness, if her family is willing to change. This decision opens a new chapter in Emma's life, where she puts herself first and gradually learns to live for personal happiness. After moving to live on her own, Emma felt the freedom she had always wanted. In her small apartment, she enjoys a peaceful life, no longer burdened by financial burdens or childcare responsibilities. Every morning, she wakes up in a relaxed mood, makes coffee, and enjoys breakfast in silence, something she could only dream of before. In the evenings, Emma reads, watches her favorite movies, and spends time taking care of herself. However, this peace does not come without a price. Emma's family is constantly trying to pull her back to her old trajectory. Messages and calls from Olivia's mother, father, and sister flooded her phone. Their content is a familiar loop: blaming, interspersed with pleas. Olivia called Emma selfish for refusing to help her family. Her mother sent long messages full of guilt, while her father insisted that they were struggling and needed her support. Initially, Emma still reads those messages, feeling torn between guilt and a desire to protect herself. But gradually, she realized that if she let them affect her, she would be caught up in a never-ending spiral of responsibility again. So Emma decided to do something she had never dared before: block the contacts of everyone in the family, including her mother, father, Olivia, and Mark. She also blocked them on social media to avoid being dragged into any controversy. Although this action made Emma feel lonely at first, she understood that it was necessary to protect the peace she had just found. Instead of being trapped in unfair responsibilities, Emma focuses on her work and personal life. She developed a career at Davidson marketing, connected with friends, and even started taking yoga classes to improve her mental health. However, Emma did not completely cut off hope with her family. During her private life, she reflected a lot on the relationship between herself and them. Emma understands that, in order to have a healthy relationship, both parties need to change. She didn't hate her family, but she also didn't want to go back to being the one who carried everything. For her, setting boundaries is the only way to maintain a fair and respectful relationship. Emma's departure also forced her family to face reality. Olivia and Mark could no longer rely on her to solve all their problems. Her mother and father realized that they could not see Emma as the rescuer of every family financial situation. Although it was not easy, they began to find a way to handle the difficulties on their own without her help. Emma doesn't hold out hope that the family will change immediately, but she believes that, with time and distance, they can recognize the injustice in the way they treat her. She left open the possibility of healing the relationship, but only if her family was willing to rebuild on a foundation of equality and respect. By setting clear boundaries, Emma not only frees herself from unjust bondage, but also shows her family that she deserves to be treated as an individual with her own value. Emma's new life is a testament to prioritizing personal well-being that not only helps her grow, but also opens up opportunities to build better relationships in the future. After deciding to block all contact from her family, Emma enters a new phase of her life where she can focus entirely on herself and her personal well-being. The peace she found in her small apartment was the result of the clear boundaries she had bravely set. No more reproachful messages or clinging guilt. Emma feels relieved and is able to take time to heal herself after years of repressed family pressure. During this time, Emma continued to focus on personal growth. She made progress in her work at Davidson Marketing, found joy in making creative contributions to projects, and received recognition from colleagues and superiors. Small successes at work help her feel more confident and have clearer goals. Despite cutting off contact with her family, Emma doesn't see this as the end entirely. She understands that distance is essential for her family to recognize her role and value beyond just providing financial support or caring for others. Emma hopes that with time, Olivia's parents and sister will realize the injustices in the way they treated her and understand that every relationship needs to be built on equality and respect. This distance not only gives Emma more freedom, but also forces her family to face problems that they have always relied on her to solve in the past. Olivia and Mark began to manage their own parenting, and her parents had to adjust their lifestyle to adapt to the fact that there was no one to share the financial burden. It's not easy, but for Emma, it's the only way for people to learn to grow and respect each other's boundaries.